Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Journey to Purpose. This is a particularly special one. It's in support of the UK Blind Veterans Charity. And joining me today, I have Simon Brown, who is a blind veteran and also an employee of the charity, here to talk about what it means to him and his own story. So, Simon, thank you so much for being here today.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure, and obviously supporting the great work you're doing in sort of raising money and advocacy for us. It's a pleasure to be involved.
Brilliant, thank you. This is all about you really. So let's start with you. You joined the army at age 18. It's something your dad did as well. But how did your career go? How did you plan for your career to go? Let's start with that maybe.
Well, like I said, my dad was RAF, and like I say, when he came out before I was born, so I never spent any time within the military. It was just a case of that, you know, back in that time there wasn't a huge number of jobs available. People were struggling. I wasn't an academic, so I wasn't going down the further education route. And yeah, the military offered me an opportunity to both have a job and maybe develop a career and get a trade and things like that. So I joined the REME in '97, did my basic training down at Purbright. From there, I went to Borden, where I did my trade training. I went to my first posting in sort of August '98 to Munster in Germany.
Nice.
And I think one of the things that when postings came up after you finished the course, it was a case of I didn't really want to be around the corner from home. I thought there's no point joining the military and just living around the corner. So when one of the options postings for our course came up, I said, "Yeah, I'll go to Germany. I'll go out there, see the world, give it a go, and see what the world has to offer." I thought, if I'm going to do this life, I might as well embrace it and take advantage of the benefits it offers, as well as the hard work it asks for.
Definitely. And for those who don't know, REME is the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. As I like to refer to them from my past life, was if you want anything fixed, you go to these guys.
Yeah. We fix it. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, and it was one of those things again. We were highly qualified, highly trained, and we got to work on bits of kit that people don't really get to work on. So it was a great opportunity to learn a good trade. And the theory was that when I came out, I'd be able to fall back on that trade. Obviously, my life went in a different direction, but yeah, and it was always that thing that the skills I was learning, and I realised this at quite a young age, the skills I was learning would take me well beyond my military career.
Mm,
And even with the changing circumstance, I would say that those skills that I learned from being in the military have indeed been the bedrock of what I've managed to achieve and go on to do since.
absolutely. And so, I mean, of course, you say that now, but it may not have felt like it at the time. So I believe this was in Iraq, 2006 in Basra. Things took a bit of a different turn for you.
They did, yeah. I mean, and it wasn't my first operational tour. I was in Kosovo in '99, and for those of us who were in the military, and especially all those who served in Yugoslavia, it's a forgotten trauma. A lot of people went through a lot of hard times. A lot of people struggled out there just because of what you were asked to do.
Mm,
It wasn't conventional warfare, and it was dealing with things that many people morally struggle with. And so that was impacting me before I even thought about the issues in Iraq. And then I went to Iraq in 2003. I was part of the invasion with the Scots DGs, so I was part of that sort of side of it as well. So I saw that conflict from its very, very sort of early days of sitting in the desert in Kuwait, doing everything in respirators and and Romeo 4, which is your full NBC kit respirator, preparing for a conflict that didn't turn out the way we expected it. And then obviously I went back in 2006. But it was a bit different because I went back as a commander. Obviously, going up to the rank, career was developing quite well. And my job was as the commander of a warrior recovery vehicle. And yeah, effectively with the AA in Basra, anything blown up, broken down, driven into a ditch, we were the teams to go in and sort that out. And that's what happened. December 6, 2006, we were on patrol with the Bulldogs, and one of them brought down. We came under heavy fire. Obviously, when you're in that kind of environment, the enemy know when you're vulnerable. A broken vehicle is a vulnerable sort of opportunity. So it all kicked off. Fortunately, we got in there. We recovered the vehicle. We recovered all 6 people on board without any injuries. And then during the extraction, for anyone who's not been to Iraq, their drainage is not quite like ours. So their drainage is effectively ditches at either side of the road. And, we didn't want to be in a situation where we had 60 ton of armoured vehicles towing each other into a ditch, which would have been a further problem, putting more lives in danger. So when I just kicked up, my driver said, I can't see. I don't want to set off yet. I put my eyes through the old. I was actually on the weapons system anyway, sort of telling the baddies I wasn't very happy at them shooting at me. And then so I sort of scanned the weapons system round. I couldn't see through the dust and sand with that, so only thing left to do was to put my head out the top of the turret. Had a quick glance, said, yes, you're clear, drive straight. And as I pulled my head back in, that's when I felt the impact. I'd been hit by a 7.62 in the side of the face, so the bullet went in my left cheek, came out my right cheek, and as you can imagine, it ruined my Wednesday morning. I'm a Yorkshire lad, so I'm tough as nails. And what saved my life, for some bizarre reason, I wasn't knocked unconscious by the round. So I was able to kind of formulate that I wasn't breathing. My jaw broke in 4 places, my palate collapsed. I knew I wasn't breathing and it was blocked, so somewhere in the back of my head, you remember the ABCs, and I had put my thumb in my mouth, held my palate up. Obviously the driver got us out of there, and there was all sorts of bits and pieces going on, getting out of the killing zone, getting towards a checkpoint where a medic then got on the vehicle. He took over relaying information back. I'm sat here completely bemused as to the situation because I know I've been shot, I know I've been hit, but I'm conscious. And I'm thinking, it can't be that bad if I'm conscious, surely. You've got no contemplation of the actual.
Absolutely.
And you just, as I said, we got back to Basra Palace. At the Basra Palace, the operation went, I got out of the vehicle. Again, I'm able to climb out the turret, so it can't be that bad, surely. At this point, there's a lot of screaming, a lot of shouting. I'm starting to panic. I'm put on a stretcher. Emergency tracheotomy, pump full of drugs, and next thing I know, I'm waking up 3 weeks later in Birmingham. So the bit in the middle that was filled in for me, I was put into a drug-induced coma. I was flown from Basra Palace to the A-pod after receiving some emergency treatment. Again, the tracheotomy and some bits and pieces, but just cleaning up the wounds. And then I was on a medevac flight back to the UK. So I was shot 11 a.m. Wednesday morning, local time. By 3 a.m. local time, I was in the back of an ambulance Friday morning, Birmingham, on my way from the Birmingham National Airport to the hospital, Selly Oak. That's again. I laid there for the next sort of nearly 3 weeks in a drug-induced coma. Some surgery was done to start the reconstruction process of my face. And I woke up Christmas Eve 2006 to work out and find out exactly what had happened. Unfortunately, it was a lot worse than I initially expected it to be. My left eye had been completely destroyed, and my right eye at the time had compression damage, and I knew there was a scar on the retina, but I didn't know where it was because of the swelling. And until the swelling went down, there was no way of understanding the damage to that eye. So I literally had light perception. I knew the lights were on or off.
Right.
I could see heavy shadow move across the front of me, but not, I couldn't make anything out. And I'm laid there in hospital bed thinking, well, hang on a minute, I've been cheated, I've been robbed. I did everything right on the battlefield, and I'm laid in the hospital bed being told I'm going to be a blind man, and I couldn't get my head around it. All my focus was on everything I'd lost, and you just sat there sulking, feeling sorry for yourself, thinking, why me? And I went to some dark places. I made some silly plans. But then we get perspective in the military, and within, a week or two of me sulking and feeling sorry for myself, I found out 2 lads had been killed in an IED attack, and that was the catalyst, really. That was the bit where I went, I need to stop doing this. I'm feeling sorry for myself, and I'm still here. I've still got, yes, I've lost a lot, but there's still a lot I've still got. And my focus at that point, I stopped being a victim and realised that, I'm a survivor here. And survivors get up, they don't give up. And that was the point where I decided I'm going to do something useful. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to do it. But my mindset was I'm going to leave this hospital and I'm going to do something useful. And that was the point where, some tough conversations with the family about what was going to come next, understanding of my own mental situation, obviously the demons that had been quite easily boxed up from places like Kosovo and things like that. They suddenly had free reign because I wasn't strong enough to keep those boxes shut anymore. And I was struggling, and like I say, I didn't know where to turn next, and I had all this energy and all this drive, but I had no way of focusing it, and I had no understanding of what opportunities may be available, and that's where Blind Veterans UK come into the picture. The first thing they did was peer support, was speaking to other people that had been through it, and realizing you're not alone. And I think that's something that's so powerful and underrated, is when you realize you're not alone. You're not the one breaking ground. Someone's done it before you. It does make it a lot easier because it's been done, and if it's been done, it can be done again.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much that you just talked through there. One, I want to just like call out. It's amazing. People underestimate what they can do in these times of crisis, right? So the fact is, you kept going on. You held your jaw together. You did all this stuff. I had a similar experience when I was hit by a drunk driver, and I woke up in hospital, and the doctors were like, you could have broken this, you've broken that. And I was like, well, I'm alive, aren't I? Like, it's all cool.
Yeah.
And they were more concerned about how calm I was than anything else at that point. But I think when you've gone through that kind of training, it just takes over in those situations. But it's almost easier to cope in the moment. And the part you talk about is the hard stuff, is when you're away from that environment, you're away from that bubble, albeit a dysfunctional bubble, and you wake up to the reality of, okay, so I now need to work through where I actually am. And that might mean working through other stuff that I've been carrying for a long time as well, like you said about Yugoslavia.
And when I woke up, there was a metal frame on there. I knew there was nothing wrong with my motor skills. I knew that my body was in one place. It was just I didn't know what was.
What was right and what was wrong.
Yeah,
Mm,
and obviously trying to make sense of what I thought was happening when I was last conscious. All the noise and information that I was getting while I was in the coma, which had absolutely no context of time, positioning, or anything. You could just hear people having conversations over the top of you, and none of it made sense. And then obviously trying to then establish, without being able to look at myself in a mirror, establish what the hell's going on. I was trying to make sense of why I couldn't see. I was trying to make, because obviously it never even entered my mind that I'd lost my sight. That was a complete shock to the system. And as you said there, it's in the moment you can cope because your adrenaline, muscle memory, whatever sort of process you want to say, but it's afterwards.
yeah.
It's when it dawns on you that reality has changed and it ain't going back to where it was. That's the tough moments. That's the moments when you've got to knuckle down and kind of show true courage at them points.
And you talked about the dark moments that you had, but also the choice that you made when you heard that some of the other people had died. But I mean, even that choice isn't an easy one to have made, right? Because what you have gone through was life transformation. To be able, if you've always been able to see, to suddenly not be able to see, I mean, I can't imagine that. I don't think many of us could imagine what it goes from being able to see the range of color in the world to just light and dark, and that's if you're lucky, right? So even that choice makes you remarkable in that journey, because plenty of people sadly don't always choose that way. But sometimes I think because they don't know who to go to for that help.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. It's a lot of people lose a sight. It generally, and this is obviously a very generalisation. it's a slow process of the eye dying or parts of the eye dying. So it's kind of disappears slowly, gradually. This was a 1 minute, next minute not. And there are people that go through that as well. And that's the thing. It's kind of I didn't have time to miss it. It was just this is it now. And you cling on to that hope that they're wrong, and things will get better. And over the next 10 years, I went through 25 operations to reconstruct my face and some of the bits and pieces of the eyes. And that's the thing. You don't get to move on while you're still sat. I was grateful when surgery finished. I actually made the choice that there was more surgery they could have done in an attempt to help with the cosmetics and stuff. But I just thought I've had enough. I want to get on. My entire 30s, I was spent going backwards and forwards to the hospital. And I just had enough. I'd given up on it and thought, you know what? I've got the functionality I need. You're not going to improve anything really, so I'm just going to move on. And like I say, it was nice to have closure on that part of my life.
Yeah.
And just try and get on with the new reality as it was. Obviously, I was fortunate that I took the choice to speak to people about my mental health while I was still serving, so I didn't have to go through the NHS waiting times. I got in quite quick because I was in that process at the time. So I was fortunate there. I managed to get that done at that time. So there was some bits and pieces that fell right for me during recovery that made it easier. And then it would, like I say, it was just about determination. It was about having that fortitude to give life a go. And one of the things I remember, during rehabilitation, yourself, you've been through sort of severe injuries, that they're very negative medical people, and they're not negative to be cruel. They're trying to manage your expectations, aren't they?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I understand why they do that, because they don't want to give false hope, and they don't want to. We fill our heads with enough false hope, and they don't want to give it, and they want to make sure that you're ready for worst case scenario. And I understand and respect that. But I kind of saw it more as a challenge. So whenever I got told no, it was kind of, well, I'll find out. I'll find this out. Often they were right, but sometimes they weren't. And that was the thing. It was a case of that actually drove me to try harder, to work harder, to push further. And as I say, I had the opportunity with blind veterans to speak to other people who'd achieved great things and were doing things, getting on with life. I also had access to the training, equipment, support. So I had not only the peer support from other people, but the professional support as well, educating me and training me in the use of accessible technology and things like that. So, I was able to build my confidence in a safe environment. And then it was just down to pure belligerence. 6'2" and 18 stone, you don't worry about bouncing so much. So, and that's like you said, and then I kind of thought, every time I got to a sort of waypoint, I kind of thought, well, I've done a lot now, but, is there anything else I can do? Is there any other challenge I can take on? Am I content with life just to be static here? Or do I fancy just giving something else a go? And that's kind of the way I started doing it then. It's 18 years since I got injured. And, when I reflect, I think that I've probably done more in the last 18 years than I would have done if I'd not been injured. So, there's two ways of looking at it. That, we can't live in hindsight anyway. We can't change yesterday. And I just thought, well, I'm on borrowed time. I got shot in the head and survived. I'm kind of on borrowed time now, so I'm just going to enjoy it and give it a go. If I fail, I fail. I'm not afraid of failure, because at least then I know. Failure gives you an answer. So, and that's just the way I started living my life. Was I'll give everything a go, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If I don't like it, I'll stop. If I do like it, I'll carry on. And I've just found that that's given me more stories and more adventures, and I thought I might have had anyway. And the squaddy mentality. As soon as someone says "hold my beer," it's going to go. I've got a great idea. Hold my beer. And at that point, everyone's going to rats, don't you? But
I mean, I've got a friend from the Marines, and he was the first triple amputee in Afghanistan. And he would say a similar thing, which is there were some dark times. He's only got one arm. He's learnt to use
I know
prosthetics for
Mark.
his legs. Oh, yeah,
I
you
know
know
Mark.
Mark, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And again, I think the things that he's gone for, well, everyone knows Mark and Fred because he's just such a lovely man and does so much. But the things that he has done, despite or even because of his injuries, and that's the difference, isn't it? And I know we want to say it's a military difference. I think it's not just a military difference, but there's definitely helps being in the military. The stuff that you're put through, the training we do, the resilience that you learn, and the as you say, hold my beer. I've got a great idea. it's
But,
it's a
yeah,
gift.
I think you're right. Like I say, there's definitely a mix of nature and nurture in the attitudes because some people don't come through,
Yeah.
and obviously others come through incredibly successfully. I mean, I was fortunate in the time I was injured. There was people like Mark around. You had Mark, you Derek's, you Dave White.
Mm.
I went through my injuries at a period when there was a lot of people who were getting really injured, and there was a strong positive attitude around. You
Mm.
know, Ben Parkinson was in the hospital at the same time as me. You know what I mean? And you look at what an incredible attitude he's got, considering
Yeah.
the things that he's having to deal with, and I think that because I was in that and around that arena with those kinds of people, there was no hiding place. You had to be strong-willed, because you'd look across the ward and you see somebody else and think, well, I'm not in that situation. I
Yeah.
need to talk him, and it was maybe it's a terrible thing that all these people were injured badly, but it was a way that they we pushed each other on, and I'm sure there's
Yeah.
people out there that said, Brownie's doing this and getting on with this, and that's inspired them. You know what I mean? So and I think we all know, around that era that we've all done bits and pieces that have really lifted each other at different points.
Mm.
And to be in and around all that, again, timing, fortune, and things like that. I think when you look at life success, you have to understand it is a cauldron of stuff. Yes, personal fortitude, courage, but there's luck, there's sort of timing. One of the things I've always said to people when going through rehab is don't be afraid to say no to an opportunity, because if it's not right, it'll do more harm than good.
Mm.
Um, and I've been lucky that opportunities come up for me when I've been in a position to not only take advantage of them, but also successfully enjoy them. Whereas I'm pretty sure that I could have done something and it's gone horribly wrong, and that could have knocked me back or kicked me into a shell that I'd have struggled to come out of. And because I haven't, I've been able to calculate which opportunities were worth taking advantage of and which weren't. It has made me have a continuous sort of more positive than negative. Don't get me wrong, I fell off the horse many a time, and I've had, I have my black dog days, and there's bits and pieces I struggle with, but in general, I've kind of stumbled onto the things that have been positive, have moved me forward rather than those that have kicked me back.
Amazing. And also, we're all human, right? So even without what you've been through, the black dog comes to us all sometimes.
Yeah, and that's it, and it's understanding how to work with it, and
Mm.
you, trying to ignore it don't work. Trying to kick it in the touch don't work. What you've got to do is kind of embrace it and actually accept, right. So you can have this day, but you're not having the
Tomorrow.
next.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of way I look at it. That if I do have one of those black dog days, it's kind of shut the curtains, put Netflix on, don't talk to the world, and then. But the deal is, I've got to do something tomorrow. I've got to get up and do something. Even if I just jump on a train and go visit a city in the UK somewhere different, I've got to do something. I can't,
Mm.
I'm not allowed to be in the house, or it could be just go to the gym, and spend longer there than I normally would. Not pouring out of a punch bag or something. You know what I mean? But I've got to do something.
Yeah.
And that's the deal I've made myself. That doesn't work for everybody, but
Yeah.
that's the process that works for me.
Brilliant. And so, UK Blind Veterans, we've touched on it a few times. Obviously, we're here today to support them. What is it that they did for you, and what are they doing today that we can all get behind and help?
So it was that, like I say, it was speaking to other people, understanding the achievements of others. I mean, that was the key thing for me. Realizing again, I wasn't on my own, and there were opportunities. It wasn't the end of the line; it was just the start of a new one. That was quite important. early on, and obviously learning about the equipment, technology, training, and stuff like that. And also, it gave you the courage to try things, because failure is a lot more frightening when you don't have backup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so to understand that there was backup, and I was allowed to fail, that gave me the thing, So, and it's kind of, you look at the ethos of the organisation is the same it was in 1915 when it was set up to today. It's giving those who serve the country and suffering from sight loss the tools, the training, the opportunity to actually some sort of fulfilling life, And it's not about, it's understanding what the goals are of people, because when you look at rehabilitation, or you look at coming to terms with trauma or any kind of transition, there's three parts to it. First of all, you have to accept it. You've got to accept that your reality has changed. And until you accept that, you will never move forward. And that's what we do, mainly through the peer support, working with others, being in environments where you can find out what's coming next. You can find out, what others have done, and that helps you accept the fact that this is where I am now. And then once you accept that, then you can start to adapt. And I prefer to use the word adapt rather than adjust. You adjust the volume on your telly. You adapt your life.
Mm.
And that's the thing. It's a permanent transition. And you learn to adapt, whether it be through technology, whether it's through skills and techniques, or whether it be, just the things the way you operate. You have to adapt. And that's the thing. You have to. You can't do things the same as you used to do them. And then through that comes achievement. And the big thing about achievement is understanding that not everybody's got the same achievement level. Not everybody wants the same achievement level. You look at Mark, for instance, take Mark Ormer, for instance. Look at what he's achieved. It's incredible. He runs his own business. He's swum here. He's rowed there. He's an incredible human being.
He
But
just
not,
sets challenge after challenge, doesn't he?
yeah, but not everybody wants to do that.
Absolutely.
So some people, I've got a mate, and he doesn't have major physical injuries. He's been hurt, but not major physical injuries in that sense. But mentally, he's broken.
Mm.
And the thing he wanted to achieve was to be able to give his son a hug when he came home from school crying. But because he'd been at an IED and multi-casualty event, the sound of screaming children set him off.
Mm.
And he couldn't be around his own son when he was crying. And that's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to comfort his own child. Now, fortunately, through support, treatment, he's able to do that now. He's able to be a dad again. But that was his achievement. That's what he wanted to do. He didn't want to climb Everest Base Camp. He didn't want to swim the Channel. He didn't want to do things like that. He just wanted to be a dad. And I think that's something that we need to make people understand when they are going through rehab or recovering from trauma, is that they can set their own bar.
Mm.
And it is a movable bar. You can get there and go, you know what, I'm ready to try something bigger now. You don't, it's not carved in stone. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be reaching for the moon straight away. And I think that's something that we do at Blind Veterans, is we manage that expectation very well with that crossover of peer support and professional advice. And it's something that we're quite proud of. That, again, it's that ethos right from 1915 was set up. We will give you the tools, we will give you the training, we will give you support so that you can live independently, so that you can have the life, not the life that you was hoping for maybe, but certainly the life that's worth getting for. Because we can often get in a trap where you feel like you're existing and not living, and that's what none of us want. We all want to live, we don't want to exist. And being around people, that's what COVID taught us, wasn't it? That
Yeah.
we're pack animals. We're not designed to be on our own. We're designed to be around others. And that's what, again, that's another great thing that the charity offers, is opportunities to get together, to pull people into the same area, to pull people into an understanding joint venture where they can be around people like themselves, where they don't feel threatened, they don't feel intimidated, they don't feel like a burden, because they're all helping each other. And that confidence that it breeds means that they can go out there and do that to the rest of the world, whether it's in their local communities, whether it's doing their own volunteering, when it's going back into work. It's having the knowledge that actually you have use, you have purpose, and you have value, and that gives you, like I said, having belief in the value of yourself is such a powerful tool, and it's so underrated. Because if you feel you bring value to your community, you'll always work hard. You'll do a bit more. Whereas if you feel you don't have any value, you will not. You'll project that, and other people will not see value. Sometimes you just got to cuff it and bluff it, haven't you? You know what I mean? So, and that's again one of the great things about the organisation is that's its purpose. It gives people that feeling of value. It gives people purpose. It gives people opportunity, and it allows people to fail without judgment. And that's again one of the biggest and most valuable tools that we can offer.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I always think sometimes to have energy, you need to use energy. And it's the same with value. To have value, you need to, create that value. And it's so easy to get caught in that rut where it all comes to self-fulfilling prophecy. So like you say, it's you kind of just have to bluff it a little while and then suddenly you find it.
Yeah.
But having an organization like the UK Blind Veterans can help you to go from faking it to truly living it. And never underestimate that peer support sort of effect that you talked about there.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing, like you say, and obviously, being military, we've all got that competitive edge, isn't it? You see someone from the RAF do something, you think, well, I can do
that. Three times better, obviously.
but like you say, it's one of those things that you're part of a fraternity. I often talk about labels when I work with young people. And there's lots of labels out there. Some are earned, some are not earned, some are pointless, some are invented. But one of our labels, veteran, that's an earned label. You have to go through something to be called a veteran. It's not something that just happens. You've actively got to earn that title. I didn't have to earn the title blind. I got given that, but I had to earn the title veteran, and so that's the one that's important to me. And like you say, it puts you in quite a unique club where, I always laugh when you talk about veterans. I could put, a 90-year-old veteran and a 19-year-old veteran behind a screen and they can talk to each other and people won't know there's 4 generations there. They'll just hear 2 people who've got somehow a very similar ability to speak to each other. And that's, that's that earned prophecy that you've gone through something to be there. You haven't just stumbled upon the title or stumbled upon the label. And that's what I always remind people, especially from our, from our cohort, is that, be proud of it. Some people don't like the veteran for ex-services or whatever, but whatever way you describe it, the fact that you're ex-military, the fact that you served your nation, you took the oath of allegiance, is something that you should be proud of. And like you said, that there are lots of support networks out there for us. If you just have a look around, I'm involved in quite a few bits and pieces locally. I got duped into joining the city council and voted into be a city councillor in Leeds, and now I'm one of the armed forces champions. So I represent the opinions, thoughts, and needs of armed forces veterans within the city of Leeds. And it's one of the things that if you live, you don't exist. You find yourself doing all sorts of things that you never expected.
It's amazing. I was just thinking then of last week. I was actually at a funeral, wasn't related to the military, but someone else I knew. But there were 3 of us there who have all served at different times. In fact, one was REME, one was engineers, and I'm in Corps. Shared experience. We could talk about Op Massif from Afghanistan. We could talk about pulling up a sandbag. We can talk about, just basic training. And even though there's probably about 10 years between all of us in age and obviously different cat badges, but that lived experience means you can walk into any pub situation, any social situation with a bunch of people who have served and have a cracking good conversation. And that is a privilege, I do think.
Yeah. And like you say, there's always the 2 or 3 questions, isn't there? The sort of foot in the water test is what's your number, where do you serve, and that sort of thing, isn't there? So yeah, you're still checking, but yeah, and that's the thing, and you don't realise it, but most of these people, I mean, that's the beauty of social media now. The good thing about social media is the ability to stay in touch with folk all around. I was recently down in Plymouth for a friend's. She just finished 30 years service, Army and Navy. So down in a military mess, on a 30-year dine out, and you just think, it's a privilege to be part of that world. But I also know that I've done my bit in it as well. So
Yeah.
you kind of, yeah, it's nice. And there's always an opportunity to do something different and stay involved. I'd always encourage people to somehow stay involved. Keep in touch, whether it's a reunion once every couple of years or just and just keep an eye on each other. That's the big thing. As you'll know, too many of our friends, colleagues, lose the battle with the demons, and it happens far too often. And I think we need to just be a bit better at looking after each other and keeping an eye on each other. And when we ask that question, "Are you all right?" Make it a question, not a greeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some colleagues in the US. I do a monthly radio show with them. Actually, not always every month because it's at midnight our time, and I do need to get to bed at like 9 o'clock. But when
Yeah.
I make it, they have a lovely thing, which is be someone's stranger. And essentially, sometimes it is easier to talk to a stranger about what's going on inside than it is to someone close to you. But I think again with the veteran community, with the military community, so you and I can be a stranger, but we can have a very deep conversation because of a shared live experience, and that's again the privilege of what we've done. And I think, like you say, reaching out is really important. But again, reminding them that there's organisations who can support. It doesn't have to be someone you serve with. It can be someone who supports the military, who can give you that conversation, give you that connection, and just support you on whatever it is you need at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, well, so one of the other things I got back into playing rugby. I sort of fat and 14 and blind. What might be a good idea? Oh, playing rugby league again. And I did for 4 years, but I've been involved with the Leeds Rhinos Foundation for a lot of years, and I started working on their mental wellbeing and suicide prevention training. Going around. It started off community rugby clubs, and it's grown, like I said, businesses and all sorts of different things now. And one of the programs we talk about on that is a Smart Alec program or the model, which is ask someone if they're all right and mean it. Listen to them without judgment, explore opportunities for support, and then check in with them to see if they're
Mm,
actually. And that's the bit that everyone forgets. We
mm,
will ask, we will listen, we will find solutions, but we never check if that person's actually, investigated that solution.
mm.
And that's what we need to do a bit more of, just making sure that if we do ask someone to do something, I'll go with them if need be, so they're not going there on their own. But it's a big sort of problem at the moment around a lot of people, especially with the deployments that have happened over the last 10, 15 years. Going back to what happened in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, again, people don't understand. There's a lot of people from the Op Banner who feel forgotten and ignored and let down. And then obviously you're moving through the Herrick's and Telix, and that's not to mention the people who've been doing the stuff in Sierra Leone around the Ebola virus, and stuff in Kenya. There's stuff, we're always deployed somewhere, but because it's not in the media, people forget.
Yeah.
Um, I'm quite happy to call on the military when they need us, but they're quite quick to forget us when they don't. I was chatting to a friend of mine, actually, she's a nurse, during COVID. They're on about the clapping tins on a Thursday.
Oh yeah.
And I just turned around and I said, it's great and enjoy it. Really enjoy it and milk it now, because it will not take long for them to forget. And it didn't, did it? I mean, I think
Absolutely.
within 3 months of us all being not grounded anymore, everybody was slagging the NHS off for doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hang on a minute. 3 months ago, you suddenly start banging a tin, and now, now that the devil spawn. I mean, make your mind up. And that's the thing, you've got to understand that. I came back from Kosovo in '99. I was spat at in the street.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it was completely misunderstood, and you come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and you know you're patted on the back, and it can be so fickle. Um, but this is the thing. This is why. But here's the irony of the job. It might be fickle, but we do the job so people can be. But
Absolutely.
the whole point of our job is so people are allowed freedom of speech, freedom of opinion. So if their opinion is to not like us, well, actually, we
You're welcome.
we we.
Yeah.
Over you. But it's the irony of the job.
Yeah,
And you know, if you're not happy with that, then you know you took the wrong job.
absolutely. It it's so true. I mean, like the fickleness of human nature is something I think we've all observed. But I had a similar thing. I was on the in London in my uniform. It was maybe 2003 or 2004, and I got shouted at, and I was like, "What have I done?" But we're in uniform. I was so new at the time, but at that, but again, you see it turned, and I came back from Afghanistan, and it was like, yeah, isn't it great? And then once again, out of sight, out of mind. That is human nature. But I think that's also why these organizations help, because they persist, they are consistent, they are always there. And so even when public opinion has gone full circle again,
Yeah.
we still have these places like Blind Veterans to help us navigate our own challenges.
And that's as you said, they've been there through every conflict, and um, in fact, it's somebody we were chatting with recently because we've been supporting Ukrainian rehabilitation services, you know, in advice and training and things like that to obviously help them cope with what's going to happen next in their sort of stuff. And one of the conversations we're having is about our abilities to cope if we get into another major conflict, because
Mm.
all of that skill set is gone. You know, it's nearly 10 years now since we've had any major combat casualties. So, you know, our training, our subject matter expertise is waned. It's a bit not you know. So we need to make sure that we stay on top of that. And I think there is a responsibility for those of us who have been through it to stay involved, to stay connected, and say, look, you know, we're happy to make sure that people stay, you know, the training stays relevant and things like that. And we'll be here to support and advise, you know, should other people go through this, because you know we have a responsibility for those who come next
Yeah.
to make sure we do that. And you know, there are some programs in place to make sure that happens. But yeah, it's obviously the dream is that we're never needed,
Yes.
but you know the reality is that we probably will be. And I was chatting to a friend in the military now, and he's saying, you know, with average length of service now 3 to 5 years, I think, and there's a massive shortfall in the middle now of NCOs who've deployed an operational service, because you know just the natural nature of the military and the way it turns over. But all those now in sort of middle management of the military, so to speak, have not got that combat experience, have not been overseas and deployed. And you know, I was looking at the guys who when I went to Kosovo, for instance, had probably an island, and then and Bosnia, and obviously then those of us who went to Iraq, we'd done Bosnia, Kosovo, those to Iraq, and you know, and Afghanistan, and but we haven't really done that kind of deployment. So it is concerning and a little bit worrying that I don't question the ability for the military to train its soldiers and its NCOs. It's just I think, and you'll know yourself, there's a big difference between soldier playing and you know some sort of foreign field that you can't spell. Uh,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So it's one of those things that it does concern me. It does worry me. Not that I doubt their professionalism. I just doubt their sort of experience. And I just hope that you know we're doing them right and making sure that we give them the tools and things we need so that when they come back, first of all, we're ready for them, whether it be
Hmm.
mental or physical illnesses. And there's no shirking of responsibility to make sure they get the support and care they need, and the families. I mean,
Yeah.
so often overlooked to the families. And I'm not just talking about spouse and children, but siblings and parents too.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. What is next for you? So you're you're Mayor of Morley, you are lead city councillor, you're working with UK and blind veterans. Obviously, you said not everything you do now you ever thought about doing when you first joined the army, but do you have a plan of what you want to do next? Or are you just going to keep saying yes to things?
I'm not always. I say no a lot, to be fair. No, yeah, just like I say, it's just one of those things. Just looking for the next challenge, looking for the next opportunity. I've been very fortunate. I got a good pension. I invested my compensation well, so I don't have financial worries. So that does give you a lot more freedom to
Sure.
say yes.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm enjoying what I'm doing at the moment with the council work. I feel seeing the value in the work I'm doing and representing my community. So I'll keep doing that till they get bored of me, and that's the thing. If you don't do the job right, they get rid of you. So there's that. Like I say, I've got the work I do with the rugby team. So I coach disabled people in rugby, which is a massive, massive passion for me. And yeah, it's just I'll see what comes along. I think I'm in a place now where I'm comfortable in life and content, and I'm able to acknowledge and understand the opportunities that are there. I want to continue to make sure the work I do with Blind Veterans UK, as much as doing that, maintaining that sort of ability to support the veterans community, and make sure that armed forces community, whether you're thinking of serving, actually serving, retired from serving, or a family member of such, that this country is a welcoming and comfortable place for you to stay and live and grow and thrive. And then, just see what happens next. I do draw the line. I've got no intention of being an MP. I'll put that out there now.
That means
Not
you probably should. I think people who don't want to be MPs ought to be MPs because the ones who
yeah,
do it, yeah, anyway, it's a different conversation.
that's not the road I want to go. Well, I'm actually an independent councillor, so I'm not aligned to any political party because,
Very wise.
they've like you say, I think that's one of the things, isn't it, that we should vote for people, not parties. You know what I mean? Sometimes we don't. I don't think we vote for the people who we want. We vote for the party we want, and sometimes the person you want is not the right political persuasion, so they don't get in. And you think, you should be looking at who's working harder for you, not who's got the right colour tie on.
Absolutely.
But that's a whole other
Yeah.
um, but no, like I said, so yeah, I'm always looking for the next challenge. I'm always looking for the next opportunity, and I'm always excited to see what I do next. But I'm also quite content and happy in the life I've got. I've got enough to keep me busy, keep me occupied. But I've found that life work balance where I do say no, and I will take time for myself. I've got a good hold and control of my sort of PTSD stuff. The physical, the blindness, it's not great, but it's what I've got and it's usable. As I say, being a big fat lad, you don't mind walking to the old post now and again. I'm incredibly aggressive with my white cane. So, I'm gonna just see what happens next. I think that's the excitement of life. Is sometimes we're that focused on what's happening over there that we forget what's happening here. And I've learned to actually live in the day and see what happens tomorrow. Because I think that's something we need to teach our young people. Don't live life too fast because you'll just miss it.
Oh,
What's the point? What's the point in waking up 50 years old and you realise you've missed your life because you were too focused on getting to a certain place? Just enjoy the journey. We're all going one place. It's just when we get there. So just enjoy the journey for me, and that's what I'd always advise. That's where I want to be. And that's it. If I enjoy the journey, then it doesn't matter what tomorrow does, does it?
absolutely not. I think that's an amazing sentiment and probably a great way to end. Um, Thank you ever so much, Simon. It's been really wonderful for you to share your story and what blind veterans have done. I'm going to have in the show notes links to donate to blind veterans as well. So please, everybody listening, go
Is
in.
that for your
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
let's
yeah,
not
people.
forget you're doing a marathon to
Oh
raise money
yes,
for
yes,
blind
yeah. So
veterans.
I'm doing a marathon. So
Yeah.
give me money, but it's before that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did. Yeah, the last thing I did for blind veterans was I was still in the army, and I did 100K in 24 hours from London to Brighton.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
since then, I've obviously got older, put on weight, and realised I don't actually like running, but I thought I could do a marathon again. That'd be fine. So
Yeah. I mean, if I'm doing 26 miles, I'm getting on a bus.
yeah,
But,
yes,
yeah, I'm past the running stage of my life. I don't mind putting a pack on. I'm going for a wander now and again. But yeah,
I
I'm not running no more.
I definitely need to find more hiking competitions than running ones. So I'm with you there, but it's fine. It's fine. London's a great one to do because it's such a chilled out one. I've done it before, so it'll be wonderful. But yeah, so I'll put the link to my donation page in the links, but also if anyone listens to this after the London Marathon, I'll replace it with a link just to donate to blind veterans in general because it's a wonderful charity, as Simon's talked about, and it does so many good things for our veteran community.
Thank you.
Thank you.